Welcome to Starting with Today's My Hair Appointment. And today we're talking about reclaiming our pleasure. We are so excited to have you here. So stay tuned, grab your girls, grab your wine. We're going to go there and have a fun discussion tonight with helping us grow sexually. Hugs. Stay tuned. Bringing her on now. They have updated this invite. There we go. Hey,
Hey there, how are you?
I am well. How are you? Can you hear me okay?
I can. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, you look beautiful. Thank you so much
So do
for joining us.
you. Yes, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Me too, me too. So before we get into it, hopefully
Okay.
people are grabbing their wine, their tea, whatever they need to get into this conversation tonight.
Yes.
Um, So, starting with today is a nonprofit. We're based here in the Washington, D.C. area and serving Prince George's County in D.C. We specialize in giving our community the tools we need to thrive. That's basically it. Like, whatever that looks like,
Yes.
we're all hands on deck, but we focus on mental health. We focus on economic empowerment for our community and also professional development and well-being. So, last summer we launched My Hair Appointment, and this is the sister program to the Shape Up. The Shape Up brings Black therapists to the Black barbershop, and we talk about subjects, all of it. So we talked about sex in the barbershop before, but we
Yes.
haven't had it yet online, and we haven't had it with Black women being centered in this conversation. I think it's really important that we have this topic, and so I have been following H.U.G.S, helping us grow sexually for a while. Actually, a friend, Carter, I believe, was the first person I saw do an interview.
Yes.
And it was amazing and authentic and raw and real. I was like, oh, yeah, I like her energy. I like it. Gotta get her,
Yes.
tag her, save her. I'm coming back. So this has been a while in the making. So we're finally glad to have you. We are welcoming Omutunde
Yes.
to our stage, our rooms, our homes, and we are
Thank
so
you.
glad to have you. Tell us a little bit about you and your nonprofit and how you got into this space.
Sure. Well, again, all that you're doing, thank you, because it's definitely needed. So I'm always excited to partner, collaborate. Anyone who knows me, I love a good partnership. I love a good collaboration because that's the only way we're all going to grow together and just support each other, but then also support those who need to be supported. So I'm super excited to be here. So thank you for your continuous support. And just, this is just the beginning of a relationship. So
Absolutely. Hey,
excited.
boo, hey.
Yes. So, helping us grow sexually is so crazy. I always tell people it's my baby. It's my brainchild. It's something that I thought about many years ago, but finally, making it a business, started almost 3 years ago now. When I say that, I'm like, wow, has it almost been 3 years?
That's fly.
But it's time flies when you're having fun, right? So that's why, one of the things I tell folks, if you want to do something, make sure you're passionate about it because it will thrive. I always find myself, you know, researching, learning different topics around sexual health, sexuality. So helping us grow sexually is really an organization or a business to support those, regardless of your age and stage in life, to really open up the conversation. Just like how you and I are going to do tonight, I really want folks to begin to have a conversation about something that has been so taboo, something that has been so stigmatized, and just really have a conversation like we have about anything else. So it's really important to talk about it and talk about, and literally that is one of my mottos, right? I say, let's just talk about it. Let's lay it out. Let's lay it out. Let's
Yes.
really not, put any more shame on this topic than it has already been done. So, find myself talking to friends, colleagues, and oftentimes I can tell people are uncomfortable still talking about the topic because, I mean, let's be real. Some of the things that we'll talk about tonight, it has a lot to do, with culture, religion. I mean, just so many different things that have really caused us to be where we are today as it pertains to sexual health. But it is a part of health. bottom line, right? It's a part of our health. So started H.U.G.S to really just open up the platform. So H.U.G.S, you know, it not only do we do workshops, sessions, I work with other individuals to collaborate to do these workshops, these sessions. I do events for couples. I do events for individuals. For example, some of the events that I've done a paint and sip night where for couples, where it's really talking about intimacy and how to increase your intimacy. I have sessions because I'm a sex coach, and I always want to distinguish. I tell folks the difference between really a sex coach and a sex therapist. A sex therapist, and I know so many great sex therapists out there, and my directory is continuing to build, and I'm so excited about that. But is really a sex therapist really looks at kind of your past and trauma and, you know, many other things. A sex coach really, when you look at the two, and some of there are some parallels, but a sex coach is really to say, okay, where do you want to be as it pertains to your future when it comes to sexual health? So that's what I do with my clients. Clients come to me and they're saying, hey, you know, I have this issue. Can we talk about that? When I start to really dig and work with that client, I really then say, okay, this may be a concern or an issue that we may need then, you know, send you to a sex therapist. So that's kind of what I do with adults, but I also work with children. I work with parents about how to talk to their kids about sex, which is something we could talk about. So again, it's ages and stages. You can be, you know, 3 years old, or you could be 83 years old. It's a part of our life. So really, you know, age appropriateness, but really having the conversation where we're just having it and not being afraid to have it.
Absolutely. And that is definitely why I wanted to have this conversation. It shows up in every aspect of our lives, right? And yes. I feel for so much for millennials and older, it has been such a taboo subject. I feel like Gen Z and younger are going to probably have it better than we have had it, thankfully.
Yeah.
And so, but I believe that, you know, sex positivity is something that we should really embrace. And like you said, at any age, we can have these open, honest conversations. So much of what we learned is either bad or wrong.
Yes.
It's shame inducing, right? And how do we begin to let those layers go in how can we show better for ourselves, not only in the bedroom, but in life, in our careers? How can we have stronger friendships where we're able to articulate what we want? And I think so much of that power comes from the shaping of our sexuality as young people, right? As young, and I think Black women specifically are so, you know, it's double-edged sword where we're over-sexualized, you know, but we're not being taught about sex. So,
exactly.
It's this really damaging narrative that we have to unlearn. I think a lot of us are unlearning it, but it is a lot to unlearn and unpack. And then I think another thing is, like, once we begin having sex, it's kind of like you learn by partner instead of like through your own narrative. So you might get somebody good where you learn some new stuff that you might not like, but you might not, you might find somebody else and you're like, okay, well, I want to do this. And you might not have the confidence or courage to explore and to learn more in, you know, different phases. What my body could do at 20 is not the same. My needs aren't the same at 30. I'm sure they're going to change at 40. So just kind of saying, okay, this is an ongoing learning experience. So how do we get comfortable in these conversations about our bodies and our pleasure, because we deserve?
No, that's so important. And you said it in the beginning, sex positivity, right? We have to create a sex from the very beginning, right? I always use this example. I have 2 young boys, you know, one that is 5 going on 30, but 5 and 3. And we have created a very sex positive household. Why? Because it's important for them to understand, 1, their body parts, 2, consent. Just again, like I said earlier, age appropriateness is key, right? I'm not saying, you know, and again, you know your children, you know your household, you know your comfortability level and all of that. And that's why I tell parents, understand your comfort level, right? Because that is how you create a sex positive household. That is how you create a sex positive environment for your children. Because if you're not comfortable talking about the topic, then they're not going to be comfortable talking about it, right? It's so, I mean, again, my boys, they know their body parts. They know the difference between, okay, you know, I have a penis and mommy has a vulva. They know, you know, the difference, and understanding what those differences are. As they get over, those conversations, of course, will increase. They'll be more comprehensive so that they're able to understand. However, again, going back to sex positivity, you have to create it at a young age. Because if you're not creating it at a young age, you're then putting shame on something that you said too is a part of life.
Right.
Just like we eat, just like we sleep, just like we're, you know, we drink water, it's a part of life. And no matter, because I think a lot of times too, the issue is when we think about sexual health, sexuality, we automatically just think about penetration.
Right.
Boom. That's it. It stops there. No one else thinks about, you know, it being a comprehensive topic. Absolutely. And that's what it's so much more than penetration. Right. There's so much when we talk about sexual health, sexuality, you know, there's so much under that umbrella that we don't even touch on, that folks don't even realize, that when they hear the word sex, they're just like, oh no.
Automatically like, oh, start shaking in your boots.
Right. People get real freaked out, you know? So it's like, you have to create a sex positive world, a sex positive environment, so that you can have those positive outcomes, so that you can have meaningful relationships, so that you can increase your pleasure, etc. It all starts from a very young age. And of course, you know, folks may be listening to this and they're like, well, shoot, I'm 50 years old and I didn't have a sex positive, you know, upbringing. Like, how do I start? It's never too late to start. It's never too late. If you're listening to this, clearly you're open to the idea, right? So start to really understand, what do I want to learn about my sexual health? What do I want to learn about my pleasure? What do I want to learn about just, you know, sexuality period as a whole, so that, you know, you can begin to create that sex positivity environment. It's key.
Absolutely. So let's get started. I think one of the things that you mentioned, in that sexuality and sex is not just penetration, right? There's so many facets of it. But one of the things I really kind of brought me to the subject is one of the subjects I was working with my therapist over the last year, about, you know, walls that I had up in different places, and how it's showing up in my career, how it's shutting down when there was conflict, how it's, you know, just these things. And so one of the exercises she gave me was around defining intimacy. And it was eye-opening, because it's like, it's one of these words you hear, you know, you internalize, but it's not necessarily something we always practice readily. And so I wanted you to talk a little bit about, how do you define intimacy, and how do you define intimacy?
Sure. So first of all, I think that's great that you were able to have that conversation with therapists, and shout out to all therapists. Again, I have so many colleagues, you know, friends who are just great therapists. I'm learning about, you know, more therapists as I go along. I mean, there's this, so shout out to all those who are, especially in our community, because again, it's key. It's so important, because mental health is a whole nother topic, but that's also another very stigmatized topic. But to answer your question, intimacy, first of all, when people hear intimacy, they automatically think sex.
That's so true.
They think sex. They're like, oh God, you know, and you know, when I talk to couples, I automatically say, just because I'm saying be intimate, I'm not saying go and have sex. Now, if that's what you perceive, hey, great. But intimate means first of all, intimacy starts outside of the bedroom, point blank. I want to start there. Intimacy, it does not start in the bedroom. You can, you know, text your partner. You can, you know, cuddle. You can be having a really deep conversation. Intimacy can lead to sex.
Right.
But intimacy doesn't always have to lead to sex. And that's really, really important for folks to understand, because I think, again, folks always think intimacy equals sex. It does not. Those are two different things. Again, if it leads to sex, great. That's, you know, and that oftentimes is what couples want. But again, you have to understand, what type of intimacy am I looking for? Because it looks different for everybody. It looks so different for everybody, you know, which is why I always tell my couples, what is your love language? Do you know your partner's love language? Do you know your love language, right? Because that will help you build intimacy. That will help you create a bond with your partner, with yourself, that you may not even understand, that you may not even have. So it's really, really important to understand that intimacy and sex are not the same thing, but they're, they're connected in some way. But again, creating your intimacy, it really, really starts outside of the bedroom, point blank. So
Absolutely.
listening to that, I want folks to understand, when they, because I think a lot of times too, again, people say intimacy, that means I got to go and have sex. No, create a bond with your partner, create a bond with yourself so that you can have pleasurable sex, that's so that you can have better sex. However, you have to understand what makes me happy and what, how can I create that intimacy, whether with myself or with a partner, etc.
Absolutely. One of the definitions I asked a friend, and I really loved his definition. I felt like it was very something I could wrap my hand around. Was like wrap my head around. Was that?
No pun intended. No pun intended. No pun. It's all good.
No
That's
pun.
no pun.
Here we are. Was that it was to surrender, to those moments, and I believe that can translate to all of our relationships. There's different level of intimacy I have with my parents, with my girlfriends, and definitely with my romantic partners. But it is that surrendering and that trust. But it takes so much emotional safety to surrender in those moments, and I think doing the work is kind of what you were saying. Being sex positive with other people is very important, but that work starts with yourself,
Yep.
right? You have to be very comfortable with who
Yes.
you are in your body, in your pleasure, before you can teach sex positivity to someone else. So I want to talk about what are some ideas that you have around how can we begin to unlearn sex shame. Of course, I'm from the South, was born and raised in the church, still a very devout Christian, but I have some very theological, and not even theological, right? There's some issues with the Black church and Black
Mm-hmm.
women and how we have been shaped, our roles in both the households and the bedrooms have been shaped by, bits and pieces. People have pulled out what they want to that makes it
Mm-hmm.
advantageous to the narrative they want to shape. So what are
Of
some
course.
tools that you think is the first step to kind of unlearning shame with sexuality?
First of all, be open. You got to be open. You can't have a closed mind, because this is such a very, like you said, it's been stigmatized, it's been shame, that you have to be open minded. That's the number one thing. When I do workshops and I do sessions with, no matter if it's, men and women in the session, or if I'm doing a session just with women, men, whatever the case may be open. There are some things that are going to make you uncomfortable. Why? To your point, this is how we were taught. This is what, we've learned, right? And if you've gone, 50, 60, shoot, heck, 20, 30, whatever years, and this is all how are you going to unlearn what you've known for that many years, right? So I also work with, I like to call them our seasoned population, right? Those are our folks
Hey.
over 55 years old and seasoned because, they have lived a very seasoned life, right? Actually, excuse me, have a workshop coming up, where I'll be doing, how to spice up your relationship, or, talking about subjects, for 60 and over women, right? Because it's
Wow.
important. Yes, it's important for, and let me say this too, to your point, you have to think about the generation that they grew up in, right?
Yes.
And they, I mean, come on. I mean, historically in the church where things have been taught, like you said, to your perception, folks have kind of manipulated certain things, and it's like we gotta start to unbreak those negative connotations. So really, how do we do that? Being open minded, and not being closed minded. And again, there are some things that are going to make you uncomfortable, but think about why is it making you uncomfortable. Think about, why is this ruffling? Why is this a little weird for me? Once you start to think about that, you'll start to kind of break down those doors and say, okay, it's making me uncomfortable because of X, Y, and Z. Maybe it's making you uncomfortable because of trauma. Maybe it's making you uncomfortable because of a situation. Maybe it's a trigger because of something that happened. So really start to understand why certain topics, as it relates to sexuality and sexual health, make you uncomfortable, so that then you can start to move forward. But that's the only way. The only way you're going to be able to do that is being open. Being open, because this is a huge world out here when it comes to sex.
Absolutely. I think that's really amazing that you're going to be talking to women who are 55, 60 over to
Yes.
continue to learn. You know, I think that is empowering because there wasn't as many tools and knowledge. There definitely
Um,
wasn't internet to kind of, and I think
no.
everything it was based around shame and being pure, this purity complex that's not necessarily
Right.
rooted in African ideology anyway.
Right.
So there is a lot to unpack there. I think one of the things that is really important is that we see who is benefiting from us feeling bad about ourselves. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's kind of one of my things with,
Yep.
as I wrestle with any patriarchy or theology or any misogynistic ways that are internalized, right? For me, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
who is benefiting from me not owning my voice?
Yep.
And then that's my process to begin to unlearn, you know? And
Yep.
typically it's men, typically it's white
Mm-hmm.
men, you know?
Mm-hmm. Think
That's
about it.
typically
Think
the
about it.
answer.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You have to think about those things. That's important. Who is benefiting from me? Who is, again, and I use this example too, is getting so much better. But I've been in this field for so long. When I first started going to conferences, I was one of the very few blacks at sex conferences, and I would look around. I'm like, okay, there's five of us out of thousands.
Right.
So again, but when you go to the workshops, who are they talking about? Marginalized populations, right?
Yep.
So to your point, very true. Very,
Yeah.
very true. So that's a very good point that you bring up.
And we talked a little bit about, definitely what we can do as Black women in a Black community as a whole to make sure that we are not passing on the shame that we
Yeah.
experienced,
Yeah.
right? Coming into our own stuff that was even out of our control. We couldn't control how our breast was growing, how our butt was growing, how our
No,
hips was
not at all.
filling out. We had to tone down our own human development to make
Right.
other people feel comfortable about the changes our body was going through without our control. It's
It's
absurd,
so,
and
and
I'm
still do. I mean, it's so crazy. I mean, because you sexualize young girls, young Black girls, more specifically at the age of. I remember I can't remember if it was a sorority sister or a colleague. Someone made a really great post, and I was like, that is actually wild. But the post, and I can't remember verbatim, but the post said something to the fact that at what age did you become sexualized, or did you feel your body was sexualized? And I mean the ages that folks were putting up, 8,
yeah,
7, 10, 12, and it's just like, and then I had to think, and I'm like, but how old was I? And I
right,
think it was around 10 or 12, right? Because you
yeah,
start to develop, but you're developing the way your body is supposed to develop. But because society has sexualized, especially, I mean, that's a whole nother topic, Black women, then you become a target for so many
absolutely,
other things. So yeah, that it's something, which is why we have to teach our young girls, which is why when I do puberty parties, I teach young girls the importance of loving your body and understanding your body. Puberty is a beautiful thing. You're becoming a woman. You're becoming, a queen. What does that mean? Not hating your breasts, not hating your, how you're feeling out. No, you're not fat. No, you're not ugly. And really starting to embrace your body so
yes,
that society is not putting any negative feelings on you when you haven't even started to have those, but you're having those because society is putting that on you.
absolutely, absolutely. I think that's so important, and I think I guess my question, I know you said you talked about how you talk to your two young boys, which I think is amazing. But what in conversations should we be having with young Black girls, and
Yeah.
how can we begin to really create this barrier where we can protect them better from sexual shame?
Sure. So again, it starts with parents. It starts with guardians. one of the things when I talk to women and I talk to parents, how to talk to your, kids about different topics. There's several series and different topics that I talk about. One is body confidence. So
Mm,
your children look at everything that you do.
that's so true. That is
So
so true.
if I walk around like, oh my God, I'm fat, look at oh my hair is ugly, this and that. One of the things from the very, very young age, my boys still do when they take off their clothes and they're running around, we're putting on their PJs or we're giving them a bath. They'll say, we're beautiful brown. We're beautiful brown. You have to
Yes.
start that, you have to start it early. And both of them, 5 and 3. So we've been saying this from the time that before they can even fully talk, that you are beautiful brown. Oh my God, look at your lips. They're so full and pretty. Oh my
Yeah.
God, look at your nose. Your nose looks just like mommy's. Oh my God, your nose looks just like auntie whoever. You all both have beautiful X, Y, and Z. You
Yeah.
have to, one, start to embrace who you are because kids do what you do. So
Woo.
model
So
that
real.
behavior. Model the behavior that you want to see in your young girl or your young man. So, because if you don't, then your children are going to pick up those negative behaviors, and then you'll start to hear them say what you're saying. So,
Yeah.
really, the best thing for parents is to really start to embrace who you are. Because once you embrace who you are, you walk around with your head held high,
Yeah.
then your children will do the same thing. Now, I do recognize that some folks may have issues with that. They may have, problems with that. Seek therapy. That's okay. Because there may be some trauma associated with why you don't feel good. And we all, honestly, it's okay. We all need to have some therapy sessions once or twice in our life, or maybe many
More.
far in between.
Yeah.
So really, if you're, and again, our bodies change, right? So I think you said it a little bit earlier, how we feel at 20 may not be how we feel at 30.
Yeah.
So recognizing that and say, okay, well, why am I feeling like this? What is making me feel this way? Why don't I feel so? Because there may, even from day to day, you may feel great today and tomorrow wake up and feel another way. But be careful what comes out of your mouth, because again, children are watching. Children are watching how you feel and how you feel about yourself.
That's a great point. I remember a couple years ago, I was at homecoming and we were standing outside, like about to get some food or something. And I was like, man, I can't wait till I get fined. And my friends turned around like, you already fine. I was like, what? So like, I don't feel this way about myself, but there
Yeah.
really was like a check, right? Because they said it in unison without thinking. And I was like, I don't see that when I look in the
Yeah.
mirror. So there's some self-talk that I need to work through. And
Yep.
then I was like, how are we talk about how, plants respond to music and
Yes.
talk, right? And I was like, how much more am I responding to what I'm feeding myself? How am I talking
Yep.
to myself? How am my cells and my body responding to this negative
Mm-hmm.
self-talk? And it really challenged me to talk better to myself even before I
Good.
believed it. And
Good.
um, eventually, of course, I do believe it, but I stopped attaching it to what the scale was saying, to what
Yep.
my genes were saying, to just I feel beautiful. I feel fine. I'm grateful for every curve. I'm grateful for every inch
Good.
of my
Good.
being. But it took.
Good.
I think there was a point where it came naturally. Then I think for me, it's like, there was definitely parts of sexual confidence, and then there's parts where either bad relationships, bad career environments, different responsibilities, family responsibilities that kind of
Right.
chip away at your sexual confidence and sexual identity.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of women, especially Black women, we have to show up
Yep.
so 1,000% in all our spaces, right?
Yep.
There's very little slack that we get to like
Yeah.
half-ass at work,
Yeah.
half-ass in our
Anywhere.
relationship, half-ass in parenthood. Like we have to be all these things. And
Yeah.
I think for a lot of women, we end up putting ourselves last. So what
Yep.
are some of the thoughts you have around prioritizing sexuality, and sexual exploration to kind of really begin to figure out what that looks like for us at every stage of life?
You're right. So, I mean, kudos to your friends for checking you, girl. Like,
Right.
look, wait a minute, you is fine. Kudos to them. But no, we are our own worst critic, right?
Right.
And I mean, that's all of us. We have points in our life when we're worse on ourselves than other times, right? Does it make you a bad person? Absolutely not. It's just really, like you said, coming back to say, okay, this isn't really me.
Right.
But it has a lot to do about how we show up in the bedroom, how we show up, confidence, how we are holding our head high. Because if you don't feel good, you're not going to feel good.
Yeah.
I'll leave that
That's
right.
real.
If you don't feel good, you're not going to feel good. Point blank.
Yeah.
And I want folks to really think about that. Because if you, I always say, and this is something I always like to say, you look good, you feel good. But what does
Yeah.
look good to you mean? What is that? But you have to define that. No one else can define that for you. And I think you made a very good point of how your friends were like, what? They saw something different than what you saw. So therefore, I mean, and I know, and you're not the only one. There's so many women, and I have some clients like that too. And when I meet them, I'm like, oh my God, this this woman is bad. I'm like, this is a bad woman. But when I start to talk to them, they don't see what I'm seeing, right?
Yeah.
And which honestly, a lot of the issues that they're having when it comes to pleasure, desire, is because of how they feel about themselves and how they perceive themselves. So
Yeah.
it's really starting to say again, I go back to this, why do you feel that way?
Yeah.
What is making you feel that way? Is it something that someone said? Is it a relationship? Is it work? Is it, something that I saw on TV? Is it social media that is, my God, has really expanded,
Or
especially during, I mean, come on, let's be real. So it's so key to one, understand why do you feel that way? When you feel like that, and I do that, sometimes too, even, currently when I feel sad or I feel, some type of feeling, say, okay, why am I feeling like this? Like literally stop yourself in your track. Why do I feel like this? And then once you start to break it down, and honestly, you may not know. Again, I go back to therapy. I'm hyping up therapy. I'm hyping it up because it's so important, because you may not be able to work some things out by yourself. And that is okay. That's
absolutely.
okay,
Absolutely.
but
Absolutely.
you have to be able to ask yourself those questions in order to get to a point in your life where you feel good, because you want to be able to say, I like this, I desire this, I want to be pleasured this way. No, this doesn't feel good. And we can talk about, when to have those conversations about, how to be pleasurized and when to talk about those things.
Yeah.
But you have to talk about them. You have to, if something is not, if you're not being pleasured, or if you're not, feeling desirable, talk about those things, and talk about, of course, with trusted individuals, right? That's
Yeah, but
another
it made me
important
think
thing.
about, you made me think about something else today, because body image plays a huge part in how we show up in the bedroom. If you feel
Mm-hmm,
comfortable with the lights on, or at a random
mm-hmm.
place, or being exposed, and then the confidence we feel in showing up, it's huge. If we're not loving ourselves, we're
Yep.
placing that responsibility, and we think we're placing that responsibility to be pleased by someone else. It's just, that's shaky ground. That's not gonna work.
It's not going to work. And you have to, one of the things I do too, I've done it with men, but more so women. When I recognize there's a confidence issue or a confidence concern, I said, when was the last time you looked in the mirror and told yourself you love you?
Mm,
And people laugh. They're like, what do you mean? Like, of course I love myself. But no, literally, when was the last time you looked in the mirror and be like, I love you?
yeah.
I love you, Amatunde. I love you, Shirley. Like, when was the last time you did that?
Yep.
Without laughing and being like, true, like feeling it. And when you first do it, and I want everyone to try it, but when you first do it, you're gonna feel something weird, because you're gonna be like, oh, this is weird, I'm talking to myself. But why does it feel weird? Ask yourself that. When you start there, then again, things will start to break down. But you have to start with self. Going to the mirror, starting with just your face, I love you. And then eventually to maybe take off your shirt. Oh, I love me. Take off your pants, and then completely naked. Because you, to that point about the body shaming, or about feeling, some type of way about our body. A lot of folks have issues with body regard, and it doesn't matter of size. I mean, I
Yeah.
know women who wear a size 2 and they're just like, I hate my body.
Yeah.
And then I know women who wear a size 20 plus and they're like, I love my body.
Right.
So it really, again, it stems back to the person, the individual. Start to love yourself. And that really begins with looking at yourself in the mirror, just like how you tell whoever you love them or whoever, your children, your parents, your girlfriend, whatever. Start with you, because the only way that you're, again, going to feel loved or to be loved or to feel desired or to have that great pleasure is to start with number one person, which is yourself.
That's a great point. And you made me think of a couple of different things. One is a book I read towards the end of the last year. It wasn't a great book, but it did have some really poignant points. And to that point, one of the things it talked about was saying, I love myself in the mirror, like several times a day. The book was called Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It. I'm not sure if that's the exact title. So let me Google that real quick.
Okay. It's important. It's really, really important to
So it's
start
Love
with
Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It. And that's by Kamal Rafikant, I believe is how you pronounce his last name. So it's an easy read. Some parts are, but then some parts are like, okay, this is a good practice that, I can definitely implement tangibly. Another thing, I lost it.
It'll come back.
But definitely about, loving yourself, loving your body for sure. And at every stage. And I think, that's what it was. Like, how we love our friends and our family. We love them. We think they're beautiful. We think they're amazing. And it doesn't require perfection, right? We don't love them. They're not perfect, and we still love them in their entirety. But a lot of times we base our self-value and self-worth on this perfection that doesn't exist. And we don't give ourselves that same allowance, and how damaging that can be.
That is so imperative, because that is very true. I mean, especially folks, who are in toxic relationships.
Yeah.
And I've seen that where it's like, okay, you love this individual, but you don't love yourself. But it honestly stems from that, right? You can love someone who may be very, very toxic, but why can you easily love them? Because you don't love yourself.
That's real. Carter said, are there any exercises we can do to practice self-love? And that's a great point. I'm going to say, if you have questions, can you put them in the Q&A? And we'll definitely make some time towards the end to answer those. But that way we won't have to go through the thread. I did happen to see OK30s.
Okay. Sure. So definitely, I think the number one, start that mirror exercise. Start with the mirror exercise, because that is so key. And again, I know it sounds so basic, but folks laugh every time I say, well, when was the last time you looked in the mirror and said, I love you, without feeling weird? Do it over and over, because the more you do it, it becomes so common. Like, oh, okay, I really love this person. I really love this person. I really love, and I'm saying this because when I first did it, I was like, okay, this is a little weird. Like, of course, this is many years ago, but it was weird. It was like weird to look in the mirror and say, I love you. Why was it weird? Why was it weird? Another thing, start with parts of your body that you do like. Because oftentimes we always are like, oh, well, I don't like, one of the things, another activity that I've done is I'll say to folks, what are some things that you don't like? People could rattle it off. People are like, oh, I don't like my hair because it's too short, it's too dry. I don't like my nose because it's too pointy. I don't like okay, well, what do you like? People sit there, they're just like, it's so hard. And it's like, why is that so hard for you to talk about what you love about yourself? But if I were to say, okay, well, why do you, and I'm just gonna throw this out there, like, why do you like Drake, or why do you like this person? Oh, because they X, Y, and Z, and we could rattle it off.
That's
why don't you like this person? So that's another thing. Really start with things that you love and start to remove those things that you don't love. The more you focus on those positive things in your body, in your life, right? And I say really on your body, because I want folks to start to feel comfortable with their bodies, not material things. I'm not talking about, oh, I like my shirt because the way it fits, or, I like the way, I put on my lashes. Like, No, start with things that you were, I would say, that you were born with, right?
Yeah.
Um, so, your nose, your lips. I remember a girlfriend putting on her Facebook page that, when she was younger, folks used to always talk about how big her lips are. Now she's like, I'm embracing my lips. My lips are
Yes.
beautiful. When
Same.
I was younger, folks used to always say, "Oh, Tuna, you have a big forehead." I'm like, "Oh, well, this big forehead is popping," you know. So you got to really, those are just a couple of things, but there's so many things, and this other self love too is really, again, what brings you pleasure, and it doesn't need to be sexual, but what brings you pleasure. Now, of course, if it is sexual, that's totally fine, but again, what brings you pleasure, what makes you happy, that's also something that you want to continue to increase in your life. If walking makes you, happy, if watching TV makes you happy. Now there's something now, and I will say this, there are some things that may be a bit more unhealthy, but if you indulge in it here and there,
Right.
and it's not harming you, because a lot of times folks are, well, you're telling someone that, drinking is okay, ain't nothing wrong with a little wine, ain't nothing wrong with a little, hey,
Yeah.
just as long as you do it in moderation. Everything in moderation is so important, right? Because if it's bringing you some type of woosah, or bringing you some type of pleasure and love for you, why not do it?
I
I love
agree.
sleep, I love naps. I wish I
Nap
could take
ministry.
more of
Shout
them.
out to Nap Ministry, making sure we're getting our rest. Um,
Exactly.
and that's such a great point. I think to that, all the things that you said, and then also writing those things down. Writing down the things that you love. Writing,
Yes.
visually seeing and writing, putting it to paper. I think it's really important to write down the things that you love and write down. I love myself. I love. Put the name down. I think there's energy and power in that. So
Very
let's
true.
talk about. We feel good about ourselves now. We
Yes.
loving our bodies. We're embracing sexual positivity. We got this bomb ass partner
Yes.
that is treating us well. That's not toxic.
Exactly.
How do we begin to get in the bedroom and communicate, explore, and communicate our needs? What
Yes.
what's How do we begin to create that safe space to have these conversations, and where do they start?
So one, they can start in the bedroom, but I encourage folks, of course, with a trusted individual, whether that be, you talking to your partner, you talking to, your friends. One thing I can definitely say, I have a bomb group of friends. We talk about in and everything. And these are friends that I've known for many, many years. And we can call each other up and talk about the most, uncomfortable topics, but they're not
Love it.
uncomfortable with, because we have created a space for each other where it's not uncomfortable. I love you for who you are. You love me for who I am, and that's important, right? So, and I think I saw someone in the comment say something about surrounding yourself with positive people. I think it was up earlier in the comments. That is so true. Surround yourself with positive people. You should not be around anyone toxic, because those vibes, those energies will start to circle who you are, or start to kind of define who you are as an individual. So that also shapes how you have certain conversations. But then also creating a safe space, and I'll talk about relationships right now, but creating a safe space for you and your partner. um, I tell folks all the time now, conversations that my husband and I had, I mean, they have definitely evolved over time. Were they always perfect? Were they always great? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
No, they weren't. But because we learned, and we wanted to learn about each other and learn about each other's pleasures, desires, which have changed, from when we first got married almost 8 years ago to now, it's changed. And even when we first started dating, it's changed. So really understanding each other, and embracing those changes is so key. But you have to be with someone who is positive. You have to be with someone who you can trust, because if not, then how are you going to have those open conversations? Someone may tell you something about, themselves that you may not be ready for, but being open, I can't say that enough, being open to embrace, because again, no one's perfect. We all have flaws. We all have experienced some type of trauma.
Yeah.
So when someone trusts you to tell you about their background, about, what they've been through, you saying, okay, how am I, first of all, am I okay with taking this information? Because a lot of times when folks tell us something and it triggers us, it's because of something in our past.
All right. Oh, that's so true.
It is, so it's like really, saying, okay, why is this making me feel, excuse me, this way? Thank you. Why is it making me feel weird? Is it something that I've dealt with, or is it just because it's new to me? Or why am I getting mad? Why am I angry? One of the things I tell couples when they come, they want to take the relationship to a different level, and then there becomes a little bit of conflict in the session, and I stop them. I say, okay, well, why is this a conflict right now? Why is this a issue? And then of course one individual in the relationship will say, well, I don't like this because X, Y, and Z. And it's like, okay, you don't like this because this is something that you've experienced. So therefore, now that someone is comfortable enough to tell you about their experience, it's an issue for you because you aren't comfortable with it. So really, again, it goes back to understanding your pleasure, understanding your desires, so that you're able to have those open, flawless conversations with your partner. It's so true. And again, it doesn't have to just happen in the bedroom. I think I said this earlier. I always recommend couples, if you want to do something different, or if you want to achieve something, or take your relationship to the next level, when you're having sex, you're not going to be like, oh, you know what? Nah, we're going to stop this right now, because no. First of all, there's ways to do that. And I've talked to couples about that as well. But I always encourage couples to have these conversations outside of the bedroom, so that it isn't weird, so that it isn't awkward. So you can say, okay, when we were doing this the other day, this was great, but I wish we could do more of this, or I wish you could do more of that, or, I would like to try this. Have those conversations outside of the bedroom so that it's not so weird in the bedroom.
Absolutely. And I think you brought up a great point about having someone you can trust, and having open mind. Because I think a lot of times anything outside of what we see, like on TV, or, this heteronormative, very missionary, plain sex.
Yeah.
Everything else is kind of labeled as deviant. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And what is that based on? You know what I'm saying? Like how.
Right. Like, why is that? Like, why? Like, it's crazy that you said. I have a couple that I was working with some years back, and they had been married over 40 years, definitely over 50 years now. But
Wow.
yeah, and it was so interesting because the woman, very sweet woman, seasoned woman, she said, I really want to spice up my relationship because we just want to take it to the next level. As I started talking to her more, she said, well, really, it's because we've been, doing it the normal way. I said, well, what do you mean the normal way? Break it down to me. Missionary, right? This is what we've been doing for years, and I just really want to spice things up. I was like, turn around. Turn around, let's, and she was like, what? And I said, no, let's talk about it. So we talked about it, and she's no longer a client, but it's crazy because that relationship is a relationship that she was so open to it. I mean, of course, in the beginning, she was a little nervous because she was like, well, I don't want him to look. I said, why would he? If anything, he enjoyed it. Yeah. But you have to start to have the conversation about different things that you want, so that, because you never know what the other person, may be interested in. But it's how can we have these conversations with each other so that we both feel comfortable.
Now, with that, I think a lot of times, I know at points I have experience with not wanting to make the other person feel like they were not amazing, right? And that's, part of this thing where you talk about confidence and being able to, definitely have a safe space, but also how can we say, I enjoyed this, but you kind of said, I enjoyed this, but I would like more of this. But how can we navigate sometimes, especially if you're talking about a heteronormative situation with the male, a black man that may be a little bit, maybe fragile. How can we navigate that a little bit to make sure they don't feel like they're doing something wrong, but we want them to show up differently in our spaces?
Having simple conversation. It doesn't even need to be about sex. Really having conversation about, there's so many great, and I buy so many different ones, and I use these in my workshops that I do. There's so many great card decks that folks have out there, and it's like literally beginning. Some of them are actually on my page, because I mean, I have therapists that have created cards to
Yeah.
really start the conversation. Because honestly, it's how can I ask certain questions without making, to your point, my partner feel that I'm breaking their masculinity down, or I'm, tearing down who they are as a person. And a lot of these cards really help with that conversation. So if folks look back on my page, you'll see some of these cards and some of these therapists that I've either worked with or that I follow. And the card decks are so amazing. It could be, and the questions could be anywhere between how do you feel about masturbation, which is a whole nother topic. But
it is masturbation month.
I mean, yes, it is. May is masturbation month.
Yes. Which is
So
a great place to like begin to explore, and definitely even from teenager, definitely to adulthood. But then we're always changing, so I think that time is so important to.
And it doesn't break. And I think you made a really good point. I think too, because I have couples who, they're like, oh, well, my partner masturbates all the time, and that means they're not. And the partner's like, no, like this is not. This is mainly it's the woman having issues with the man masturbating. And I'm like, it's okay, like it's fine. You should masturbate too. It don't like it's him masturbating or don't it doesn't. It's not taken away from what, and some of these are married couples, some of these are, newly married, newlyweds, whatever the case may be. But, and the thing about it is, it's the partner who has the issue with their partner masturbating. But, it's like, oh, well, the sex is great, but why do you have to masturbate? Well, and one of the questions I asked, well, did you think they're masturbating so that they can understand their own pleasure so that they can pleasure you?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that of course is not for everybody. That isn't necessarily the case for everybody, but it's something for folks to think about. Really, masturbation, we again, is so much stigma and shame around it that we've put, I mean, I can go on and on about it, but really it's understanding what makes you feel good. And a lot of people are like, well, I shouldn't touch myself. I have women who've never seen their vulva or never seen their vagina.
Yeah.
They're like, I don't know what it looks like down there. And it's like, okay, but you should.
Let's get a mirror.
Let's get a mirror. I actually did when I did the H.U.G.S launch, I did a sip and paint around that. I said I wanted everyone to paint a picture of their vulva. Nice. Do you know what your vulva look, or what would you like your vulva to look like, or what do you think your vulva looks like? But it's something that I talk to, young girls about, understanding your body, not just, from a sexual standpoint, but really understanding from a health standpoint. Right?
Absolutely.
Because you need to be able to articulate if something is different. It's yeah.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. That's such a good point. And I think to that point, I think the thing around masturbation too is also, it's kind of like, to me, I feel like the same thing, you working out for yourself. Like it's some things that you need to be, owning for yourself versus always having to rely on someone else. And I think that kind of takes the pressure off the exchanges, that it's not just mechanical, and it can be an actual intimate exchange, that it should be, when you are. So let's talk about toys.
Yeah. Masturbation month. So, helping us grow. And I know a lot of times folks are like, toys. I also have products. If anyone is interested, it's a H.U.G.S toy box, which is my toy box product line. And actually, this spring I was set to launch my H.U.G.S toy box line, but it got pushed back a little bit because of COVID and all that good stuff. But it's coming. But I do,
congratulations.
Thank you. I do work with vendors to get different products. So if there's something that you don't see up there and you're like, well, I really want to achieve this. A lot of times when I do events, folks will come up to the table and they'll say, well, I don't know what I want to buy. Well, what do you want to achieve?
Oh, that's a great question.
What do you want to achieve? Is it, do you want to achieve an orgasm? Do you want to understand your G-spot? Do you want to understand, what are some of your trigger points? Like what do you want to achieve? And once you're able to kind of answer that, and a lot of people don't know. They're like, I don't know.
Right.
You know, it's either I don't know or I want to orgasm. Those are the two extremes that I get. So
Right.
really having folks understand what they want to achieve is key to getting a toy. Because a lot of times folks get toys and they're like, well, this is not really what I expected. Well, what did you expect? What did you want? So that is really how I consult before you buy any toys. I always tell folks, consult with me before you just hop in and you get a toy and you're like, I don't really like this. It's not really what I want to expect. I don't expect this, you know. So really, again, is it something that you want for yourself? Is it something that you want for you and your partner? Is this something, you know, you want just a one-time thing? You know, do you want something that is gonna enhance the way you look? It really, really depends on your needs and your wants. And that is really the best way to really pick out a toy or a novelty item to really enhance your pleasure. Because I think a lot of times we think about toys, we automatically think dildo and vibrator, and that's it. There's so many other toys, and toys could really help, you know, in many areas. It could help, you know, the way you feel. I had one of the things that it's interesting enough that over COVID, the amount of anal plugs that I have sold
Yes.
has been astonishing. But if you look at the anal plugs that I sell, you would know why, because they are kind of beauty items. And this is folks want this because they want to, you know, feel good. They want to, you know, look good. So when I bend over, this is what it's showing, you know. So again, what do you want to achieve? What do you want to accomplish when it comes to purchasing a toy? And that's the number one thing. So again, before you purchase a toy, just make sure you ask questions.
That's a great point. And another thing you brought up, and I think which is a great gateway to say to a partner that you may want to try a toy, is to say, hey, it's a special occasion, or for this, let's get away. This is a one-time thing. I think a lot of times people think that it has to be this, you know, lifetime commitment, and saying this needs to be an everyday thing, but it can be a 1 or 2 time thing. It's something that we know we might want to play with and experiment with to see if it heightens pleasure. And it doesn't have to be perfect. I think it's kind of one of the things you said, right? It's experiment. Just like when you go to, if you're a kid and you're playing with different toys, you try it out, you like it, you don't like it, you can find something else, although the price points are different. So I think
Yes. But no, that's a very good point. Yes, it doesn't have to be, this is something that we're going to use for the rest of our relationship, or this is something that, because again, our bodies change, things change, the way we feel change. So what I enjoy now may not necessarily be what I enjoy 5 years down the line. I may have really liked this vibrator, but now I'm like, oh, it's really not, you know, serving the purpose. Or I really like this, you know, because I have clients who say, well, I really used to like this bullet, but now I'm really just into something that's going to, you know, enhance the way I feel internally. Okay, well, that's different, you know, because you wouldn't put a bullet inside, and that's for many different reasons. So it's really understanding that different points of your life will bring different pleasure points and desires. So that's very true.
and I think it's good. And to your point, to the couple that was 40 and 50 years in, to have some variety, like, you
Yeah.
know, as part of the, I don't want to be 40 years in and be like, oh, let's try something, you know, new. Like, let it be part of like our routine and our check-in. I think it's really important.
Check in. I like that. Let it be part
Yes.
of your check in, or what we call pillow talk. You know,
Yes.
it doesn't necessarily be you laying on a pillow, but pillow talk, like literally talking to your partner over time. Not every, you don't have to do it every day, but let's check in. Let's what is something that you want to tell me, or what is something that, you know, we should talk about that you want to do to increase where we are today. So yes.
Yeah, one of the barbers at the barbershop talk where we do the shape up brought it up, and he was like, you know, he checks in with his partner, you know, every 2 weeks. Like, what am I doing? You know, what can I do better? What am I doing correct? Anything else I can do to kind of, you know, make you happy, like make this whole don't build up, so people,
Right.
I think even too, that kind of goes back to kind of creating the safe space, like, just saying, hey, it's going to be informal, it's a catch-all, so we can be talking about, I wish you can, wash the dishes
Yep.
more, or you can pick up the kids more, and also you can grab some toys or something like.
Yeah, throw it in there. So it doesn't always have to. That's that intimacy piece. That is
Yeah,
that intimacy piece, right? Talking about things that, yes, they may be sexually related and they may not be, right? But you having those conversations is creating a deeper bond. And it may be odd, but these are conversations that we have to have, and these are conversations that I help couples or individuals have, because I recognize that not everyone is comfortable talking about it, but you have to start somewhere.
absolutely, absolutely. So we're getting ready to wind down in a little bit. So I just want to say, if you have questions, put them in the Q&A so we don't have to read back through the thread. Thank you so much for coming out and joining us. So
Yes.
I want to close us out, beginning talking about Black women's sexuality and how we
Yeah.
can regain power even now. For my birthday, I did it delayed, but I knew towards mid last year that I really wanted to do a boudoir shoot, right? And
Ah,
yeah,
love
and
those.
so I didn't verbalize it. So maybe like August or September, I reached out to the photographer I wanted to have do it. Shout out to Candy Williams, who's amazing. And I was like, I want to do a boudoir shoot, and we began planning. And she was the only person I told, like, on the planet.
Yes.
It's like, I want to do this, but I want it to be without external pressure. I want it to be without like a lot of other influence and thoughts and stuff that I have not asked for.
Yeah.
But for me, I felt like I went into this year saying, hey, I'm ready to tap back in. And it's not just, intimacy or sexually, but like back into my career, back into like owning my power, showing up, speaking up for
Good.
myself, instead of like just shutting down and,
Good.
feeling the pressure from external sources for sure. So for me, there was a series of steps that I went through to mentally prepare for that. And one was like really taking care of my health. It like just realizing my body needs, as I'm approaching 40, it needs more fuel, different fuel, better fuel than it did 20 years ago. It's not what I ate before. It's just not working. It's just
I'm with you, sis. I'm with you.
my body wants this premium fuel at this point. It just we're
Right.
not gonna do this regular stuff no more, which is fine. But it's like having the time to check back in and listen to my body. And then also, I'm very a physical type of person. Like, and so I did a chair dance party virtually with my
Nice.
girls, and then we led up to this boudoir shoot where I was like, I felt my mind, body, soul, and spirit connected in a way I
Nice.
haven't in a while, between work, between the pandemic, between grief, between running around like crazy, trying to keep up with all the things that come with being young Black and in DC. That I put myself last.
Yeah.
And so now I'm trying to make sure I have foolproof, plans to kind of
Absolutely.
say, okay, in 3 months, I'm gonna check in. How am I showing up for myself? How am I feeling about myself?
Good.
How
Good
am I
job.
showing love to myself? And I think that's a good practice for other people. But how do you think that Black women can go about in your coaching to like really kind of regain that power in their spaces?
Number one, shout out to you. I love a good boudoir session. I haven't
Hey,
done one. It was something that I did literally right before I got married, and it was the book, the wedding, or the photo album, private photo album that I gave my husband right the night before we got married. And I was just like,
that
this is
is
what
a
you got to look
gift.
to.
That's a
This is what
gift.
you're looking forward to, okay?
That's a gift. Put
Right.
that
So
on the
it's
list.
this. I mean, so, and I actually, there's a and I will send you her information too. But there's also another woman based out of Baltimore but she does boudoir specifically for Black women, black bodies. So I think it's key, right? Really embracing, and she's amazing. I follow her here on Instagram. But you know, I think it really starts with, as you were talking, I was clapping it up in my head for you, like, yes, this is good, because you're recognizing, look, I do all of this for everyone else. What have I done for myself?
Yeah.
Right? What have I done for myself? And this is the thing too. I was literally just thinking this today. Why do we feel bad when we do something for ourselves? Why do we feel why are we like, oh God, I shouldn't have done that? Or maybe, and I'm not talking about anything negative, but more so like, what, like, you didn't feel bad after you did that shoot. You were like, you didn't say, gosh, I shouldn't have took those pictures with my clothes this away, or I shouldn't have done that cheer dance. But oftentimes we put guilt on something that makes us feel good.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
So stepping out of feeling guilty about something that makes you feel good, you know?
Absolutely.
And again, I'm talking about, taking those beautiful boudoir pictures, masturbating, having pleasurable sex, dancing around in your heels, or whatever,
Get the
whatever.
lingerie. Get the lingerie, sis.
Yeah, I mean, literally, all of this is so key, and not feeling bad about it, not feeling, oh God, but because you don't feel bad when you work that extra 7 hours at
Ooh,
work, or
that's
you
real.
don't feel bad when you drove around to do X, Y, and Z for whoever. So when it comes to ourselves, to your question, as Black women, we have to start to say, you know what, I deserve this. I literally just said that to a girlfriend of mine who's actually, on a trip, and she bless her, I just really look up to her, because she's like, look, I'm gonna take a trip more often. I'm gonna do this, and my words to her in our group friend text, I say, you deserve it.
Yeah.
You deserve it. So to the women out there, really, you deserve it. Don't feel
Yes.
bad. Don't feel bad that you went to get your nails done. Don't feel bad that and I'm talking not only to the women out there, I'm talking to myself too,
Yes.
because I have that bad too, where sometimes I'll still be like, should I have done that? I'm thankful for a supportive partner who's always like, babe, well, you don't do anything for yourself. You don't. Like, you are always looking out for everybody else. And I'm like, yeah, well, I just want to make sure. He was just like, no, no.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to have a supportive, husband who's always like checking me and putting me back into, into a headspace like, well, you know what? Let me not feel bad about buying that dress. And let me not feel bad about, buying that first pair of shoes in the last 3 years. So
Exactly.
the guilt, get rid of the guilt. That's
Get rid
that's
of
the
the
bottom line.
guilt.
Get rid of the guilt. It's key.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that. I think one of the things too, about this confidence piece, and I would love to hear your thoughts around how we begin to speak up for ourselves as Black women. I feel like a lot of times we have been, muted silence, as Oprah would say,
Yeah.
in our careers, in our office areas, definitely, in our relationships, in churches and circles as well. So how do you feel that we can begin to use body positivity as a way to begin to reclaim our voices?
Sticking together.
Woo!
Just what you and I are doing right now. We didn't know each other,
Yeah.
right? We had a
Right.
mutual friend,
Yep.
and we didn't even know we went to the same school.
I didn't either.
But it's, again, sticking together.
Yeah.
And I said it in the beginning, when you stick with, when you start to build those relationships, build those partnerships, build those, you know, um, very meaningful, collaborative, just
Yeah.
relationships in general, it really helps us build unity. And by building that unity, you're able to feel better about self, right? You're able to say, well, my sister, like, just like your friends, like in the example that you use, where you're just like, one day I'm gonna be fine. Your friends was like, girl, no, checkmate, you are fine. Having those friends, those hype girls, those hype men, whatever the case may be, when you have that, and let me say this, those friends who are not just saying it with words, but they mean it the way they mean it, and they love self, so therefore they can also love you. When you
Yeah.
have friends like that, it makes it much easier to have a voice, because I
Yeah.
can automatically say, well, I know my homegirl's gonna have my back. I know such and such is gonna have my back. So again, it's really sticking together, point blank, building that unity, removing toxicity out of your life. You don't need to hang with, people who are toxic. You don't need, and the older you get, you'll start to realize that there's just certain people who don't need to be in your life. And sometimes, yes, those relationships, you have them and they dwindle, and it hurts because you're like, well, I thought that person was gonna be in my life for, that has happened to me. I'm like, well, man, I thought that was gonna be, but one of the things my mom always said, people are in your life for a season and a reason sometimes.
Yeah.
And understanding that, and I had to learn that and say it's okay to have 3 good friends versus 300 fake friends.
That's so real.
So it's key. Yeah, it's very key.
It made me, what she said made me think about this quote I saw on Twitter today, and I'm going to read it real quick by Fannie Lou Hamer. She says, when I liberate myself, I liberate others. If I don't speak out, ain't nobody going to speak out for you. If you don't speak out, ain't nobody going to speak out for you, Fannie Lou Hamer. Which I thought so powerful. And one of the things that came out when I did the boudoir shoot, one of my friends was like, you ain't going to post some pictures. I'm like, yeah, I am.
Yes, I am.
Yes, I'm going to post them. Because I think it's so important, that people don't define me to whatever boxes they put me in, right? That I get to define myself on my own terms, and that I am a multifaceted Black woman, right? Like I have, so did Josephine Baker, so did Maya Angelou, so did Toni Morrison. All these women got to be their full free selves, and how dare I, Jordan Neil Hurston, all the people we love, right? Beyonce, like all the women that we love, that have embraced the fullness of who they are, both intellectually, as business women, as sexual beings, right? And I kind of felt like it was my responsibility to walk into that power and not to undo that, right? Because otherwise it would be like this misalignment. It's untrue. And it's kind of this thing what you're talking about, right? Like I had to trust that whoever knew me for real would understand and ride out, and you know what I'm saying? Like it was so much love, it was so well embraced. So it's like there are people who I know had a problem with it, but like they'll
but then again, they have to ask themselves, why do they have an issue with it?
That's real. That is so true.
It wasn't you, because you were like, look, I'm ready to do this,
right?
I'm ready to make this thing happen. But why do they have an issue with it?
Yeah,
they have to ask themselves that question. Is it because is it a trigger?
Right.
Is it something that they were dealing with mentally, sexually, whatever the case may be? Because you were, like you said, you doing this. We're gonna post these pictures. I don't care what y'all say. We're about to post these pictures, right? But again, that is something. So whoever had those issues, I really encouraged them to really ask themselves, well, why did I have an issue with her taking those pictures? Right. It wasn't me posting them, but why do I have an issue with her posting them?
That's so true. That's so true. I think that's a subject for all of us. For like, whenever we see another Black woman that is walking in their power, and we feel some type of way, that is a self-check. Like, what's happening here that we're not feeling our own power and being empowered by this other woman? Because I know I feel empowered when I see other women standing really boldly in their truth, that you've been having these really open, raw conversations. I'm like, oh, okay, we can have these conversations.
We can have and giving the sister the props that she deserves. I'm known for going up to a sister. I'm like, oh my God, you, like, your hair is bomb. You are beautiful. Like, I love the way you work that. Like, lifting each other up and not putting each other down, not eye rolling. And then think about it, especially with our younger females, we have to teach that, especially our younger, and I'm talking about, our my 12 to 21 year olds, and even a little bit older than that, but teaching them that it's okay to give, your girlfriend, hey, you look beautiful, or, oh, I like that shirt, or, oh, I like the way you that looks on you. It's okay to give it. When we teach them young that it's okay to give their sister a prop, guess what? The older you get, you'll be able to be like, oh, she's beautiful. Oh, because you're comfortable not only with self, but also being able to articulate that to the next person.
You're so right. And it kind of goes back to what you were saying at the beginning with your sons. Like, they model whatever we do. And we have to make sure that we are leading by example, that we, Black women just aren't loved enough. And so we have to change that narrative for sure, to make sure that we are loving up on ourselves extra.
Yes,
Like,
yes, you have to.
Like, I don't
we
care.
have to.
I go so hard for Black women, like, unapologetically. because who else is going to ride for us the way that we would ride for each other?
So true. So true.
So I think that's about it. I think one of the things that I really wanted people to take away from this is, just knowing that, sexuality is an emotional health issue. Like, it is
Mm-hmm.
part of our mental health. It flows into every aspect of our lives and how we feel about ourselves.
Yep.
And so it's not just a physical thing, right? So we
Mm-mm.
need to make sure that we honor that, and that we take care of, we nurture it, and we honor that space very much. And I think another thing too is just really kind of making sure we're creating spaces where we can share power, where Black women
Yeah.
can share power. Just like Tune said, like, we're sticking together. Like,
Stick together. Stick together. Let's ask each other questions. Let's be uncomfortable together. Let's grow together.
yeah, absolutely. And then definitely also, there's so many more resources. I believe once you start following one, you start seeing three,
Yes.
for, people that are in the space. So definitely helping us grow sexually, follow them. There's a wealth of information
Yes.
on her Instagram. Dr. Ashley Towns stands out as
Oh
well.
yes. She's another great one.
Dr. Mika, can't remember her last name, but look her up. Once you start following, you'll see the other ones. They're doing
Yes.
a lot of work, PhDs around
Oh,
sexuality,
yeah.
specifically around Black women and sexual identities, which is
Yes.
so important, because once we have the information and that data, we know that we're not alone,
Right.
and
Not
that this
alone at
is
all.
not this is nothing to be ashamed about. There's nothing to have people try to hold over your head. And so I think that has been really empowering. I think having this downtime in the pandemic has
Yes.
allowed more people to have space to kind of really explore what's working for them and what's not working for them, and then definitely what do you want to change.
Yep. That's so true. Yes. And to your point, there's so many, as you're talking, there's so many, because I think a lot of folks, they're like, oh, there's not anyone who looks like me in this space. You're wrong. There's so,
Yeah.
like in February, I literally dedicated my whole entire month with shouting out different folks in this space and who are
Yes.
doing this amazing work. So if you go back and you look, February, literally, there's someone touching all aspects of sexuality, sexual health. Follow their pages. I'm not doing this work alone, and I don't intend to. When I don't look at it as a competition. I look at it
Right.
as us again growing together. I learn from these individuals. I say, oh, okay, they've been in this space for 12 years. They've been in this space
Right.
for 50 years, whatever the case may be. But the only way to learn is to lean on partners and to lean on folks who are doing great work and saying, okay, how, because trust me, there's enough work out here. There's so many people,
It's
not
so
just,
many.
locally, nationally, globally. So tap into those people. Look at their pages. I mean, they got some great stuff going on.
Absolutely, absolutely. So last call for questions. I don't see anything in the Q&A. I did see some comments, but I think we got all of the questions that I saw. So I apologize if I didn't see it. So feel free to hit us up. Feel free to reach out to Tunde. Book your consulting sessions. Reach out to specialists. You do not have to figure this out alone. Have conversations with your girlfriends, and definitely with your partners. And if you don't feel comfortable having it with your partner, I think that's a sign that something needs to be adjusted for sure. You
Yes.
have any closing thoughts?
Well, again, thank you so much. I think this was just a great conversation and just the beginning of our relationship. So I can't wait, for future collaborations. And, folks, again, want to reach out. Like you said, you don't have to do this alone. Don't think, oh, God, this is going to be a weird question. This is going to be a crazy question to ask her. Trust me, I get it all in my DM. I encourage folks to, though, really, go to my website and put in a request there, because I'm able to really track and help help you thoroughly.
Yeah.
So you can just go to helpingusgrowsexually.com. But again, if there's something instant that you want right away or that you need right away, I tell folks you can hit me up in my DM and I will refer you to my website, because there may be something that we need to talk about a little bit deeper. But my Instagram page is dedicated to education. I really, make sure to be thoughtful when posting. So there's days that I may not post because folks DM me like, hey, can you touch on this topic? and I may not touch on it that next day or the day, day after that, because I want to really be thoughtful on the content that I'm posting, but then also making sure that it's up to date, it's medically and scientifically accurate. So again, it's not me posting every day, but posting so that, folks are able to, yes, you may feel uncomfortable when you see a certain post. I have folks who told me, well, this post makes me feel this way, or why did you post this? It's educational. Why do you feel that way
Right.
when looking at this particular post?
Right.
But the goal is to really create something that has been so taboo and so stigmatized in our culture, to make it to unbreak, what we've been talking about all night, this entire evening, to really break that down and not let it be. If I can, the end goal is to make sure that we're talking about sex, that like we're talking about anything else. That's the end goal.
I love that. I love that.
Yes.
So thank you so much for the work. Thank you
Thank
for making
you.
time and space.
Of course.
I think we start planning this like in early part of this year, and so we
Yeah.
barely aligned.
Yes.
That's my fault.
Oh, it is okay. Time has been, crazy for us all. It is totally fine. I'm glad we got to do it though.
Yes, me too. And again, like you said at the beginning, of many more, and we look forward to. So yes, follow helping us grow sexually. Check out the website. Of course, you probably already follow me. Starting with today, here we have information at startingwithtoday.org. The next event is coming up mid-June. It's actually going to be a week series, and I can't release more details yet. But June 14th through June 19th, stay tuned. We coming for you.
Yes.
All right, till next time. Thanks so much. That's my
Thank
auntie, my Aunt
you.
Linda.
Yay. Hey,
Thanks so much
Auntie.
for joining.
Thank
Thanks for joining.
you.
Y'all have a great
Bye.
night. Y'all be free and free each other and take care of each other for sure. We see y'all next time.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.